Steve and I had this little 4-track and started producing punk bands. And we just poured all the money into it, and that grew really quickly. There was a really hot scene there at the time with bands like Killdozer and Die Kreutzen, and I did a lot of work for Sub Pop and Touch and Go, and that kept expanding, and that's how bands like Smashing Pumpkins and Nirvana heard of me, was from the underground punk things I did, and that totally blew up. I mean, I got to work with some amazing bands, and the whole time we were doing that, though, the reason we built the studio was we always wanted to record our own music, and it wasn't till like 94 or 95 when Duke and Steve and I started doing remixes for U2 and Depeche Mode and House of Pain and different bands like that really inspired us to want to write music again, because I had always been a musician before I became an engineer and a producer, and it was the remixes that really inspired us to start Garbage.
Before Shirley joined Garbage, we were kind of experimenting with noises and a few sketchy song ideas in Steve's basement. We had a little studio set up down there, and we really didn't know what we were doing. I mean, we were searching for a female voice, I think, because I think we just liked the idea of the contrast between this noise and a female melody. And that's really all that we had until Shirley came along. We had no direction whatsoever.
Yeah, I was in a band called Goodbye Mr. Mackenzie for almost 10 years before I met Garbage. So, yeah, I mean, I think it was an amazing experience. I mean, I learned an awful lot about not just playing and performing, but the music business. I mean, we were signed to 3 major labels before we bit the dust, and then I was in a sort of offshoot of that in a band called Angelfish for another year. That didn't last very long, and it was a little dysfunctional. So when I got the call from this bunch, I was out of there. I ran. Steve saw Shirley on MTV one night. In fact, I think MTV, at least in America, played the Angelfish video once. It was on a program called 120 Minutes, where they play a lot of alternative rock acts and up-and-coming bands. And it was like 2 in the morning. I don't know what he was doing up, but he happened to tape it that night, and he came in the next day and said, I heard this woman singing, and played the video for Duke and me, and we just fell in love with her voice. The initial meeting between the 4 beings that now make up Garbage was a little peculiar. We met in this really posh hotel, which I thought they were staying at, but in fact they had just walked from their shitty hotel to a posh hotel in order to impress me. So I was really impressed by them, because I thought, God, they must be really successful, and you know, I was a little intimidated by the surroundings. And I think we had our first bonding moment when the waiter arrived to serve us some drinks, and he was just ludicrously posh, and we started pissing ourselves laughing, and I think that's when we knew at least we shared a sense of humour, if nothing else, and it sort of built from there. Well, they came to see me play a show live, which was the first taste I think they got of the diva that they were getting involved with, because I think I had a strop about the monitors that night, because I was so uptight about them being there, and it was a disastrous show. But I thought that they were willing enough to meet me after that show. They must be meant for me, because any man in the right mind would have run in the opposite direction. We
were just scared to stand you up at that point.
Natural gestation period of a Garbage record is, it seems, 1 year.
It's because we write in the studio. The songwriting process for us is we go in and hit record and then see what comes out, and you can't predict when a song is going to drop in your lap. I mean, it's really, sometimes you think you get an idea and you can force it, but then you're not happy with how things turn out. But the first album was probably the hardest, because even though we started recording, we didn't really know what it was going to sound like, and we had all these ideas flying in. We want to make stuff noisy, we want to make stuff poppy, we want to bring in some hip-hop grooves, whatever. And that's sort of, in a way, what defined us, is we threw all these reference points on the wall and kind of, tried to see what would stick. And it was really Shirley's voice that sort of glued it all together. And really, even to this day, I think that's what kind of keeps it sounding cohesive.
Yeah, we never had any plans to make more than one record, really. I mean, we had no plans to do anything other than make that record. We weren't going to tour. We had no illusions and no master plan whatsoever. This whole thing has just been made up as we go. It's and one surprise after another as we go. So, no, we didn't feel right just going out and playing live, because I don't think we quite felt like the band we wanted to be. I mean, our intention was always to create a band. We were never a studio project the way we were often branded, 3 producers and a singer and all that.
We didn't suddenly wake up and play in front of, hundreds of thousands of people. From the first single onwards, it was a sort of slow climb up the charts, and we never really had a huge big hit single. It was just each single that we released did better than the one previous to that.
When the first record came out, I think it was a little frustrating for us because everybody sort of focused on me and my production with Nirvana and Smashing Pumpkins, and we wanted to talk about garbage. We wanted to talk about the music that we wrote. And I think, really, as Shirley said earlier, it's because the songs, we didn't sound like everybody else. We didn't sound like a grunge band or a techno band, and it really caught people by surprise. And slowly but surely they started, I don't know if they were forced to, but they started acknowledging that there were really good songs on the album. And as the tour started to progress, the questions were less about what was Kurt Cobain like and what is Shirley like. It really, I think it just, like Shirley said, it also took about a year for that to happen. I think the press talked about us maybe sort of hypey and right away because I think the record sounded fresh, but it did take a long time for an audience to capture an audience.
I just played Top of the Pops. Well, for me at least, when we played Top of the Pops, that was it. We've arrived. I grew up watching Top of the Pops in the UK, and to arrive there, and we were playing opposite Chrissie Hynde and the Pretenders, so it was a trip. It was like landing on Mars.
Yeah, we grew up knowing about Top of the Pops, reading in all the magazines, music magazines, all the British bands playing Top of the Pops. We'd never seen it, of course, but all of a sudden there we were on it, these Yanks, and it was thrilling.
It's amazing, when people are responding to something that we're creating. It's an incredible feeling. It's just the best feeling in the world. Having people come to our shows and looking down in the audience and they're all sweating and they're all grinning and everybody's having an amazing time. That I can't be cynical about that, and believe me, I've tried.
Pressure on the band during the recording of version 2.0.
I think we felt immense pressure when we started version 2.0. Not so much from the record company or from critics, but from ourselves. I think that we felt like we needed to prove that the first record wasn't a fluke, that we could sort of take everything we learned and try and push it out farther, push ourselves a little bit farther. And we didn't really talk about it, but it was hard to go out. We would go out to some clubs and see some of our friends in Madison, and they would say, wow, it must be really hard. You guys must be under a lot of pressure. And we're like, quit saying that to us. We don't want to hear that anymore. But I think it's because we also felt we had a little bit more confidence as a band, but we also wanted to bring in all these ideas, and it was a lot of tension in the recording of that record. And I think in some ways, we're really proud of version 2.0, but I think you can hear that.
Well, the first record was a weird experience, I think, in particular for Butch, because I think there was a lot of pressure on him on the first record. He had a lot more to lose than we did. Coming into the second record, I think all 3 of us, the other 3, felt the same pressure because all of a sudden we had something to lose. And so we got more and more agitated, and so it was the same experience as Butch had. There was a lot of tension, and we were very uptight, and consequently probably didn't take as many risks as we maybe should have on the second record, or certainly didn't take as many risks as really I think deep down we really wanted to.
After version 2.0 came out, we went on the road and we were playing night after night for 20 months, and we played over 250 shows in 30-some countries over that period of time, and it was grueling. It was exciting, especially in the beginning, as those things go, and the shows are incredible. We found an audience all over the world, and that was momentous for us. But it took its toll on our personal lives to a degree, and on us, physically, mentally, everything. But I think it really brought us closer together. We really became closer as friends, and the playing every night, you know, we began to read each other better, musically, personally, and it just we grew as songwriters, we grew as musicians, and as a band.
Couldn't afford to make another record in the same vein as the previous two. I think we felt that we really had to take the band somewhere else in order to make it exciting for ourselves, first and foremost. And I think we wanted to just stretch ourselves and push ourselves into areas that maybe we hadn't explored in the past. And vocally, I felt that I really needed to shake things up. I was beginning to sing a certain way, develop certain habits, and I wanted to get rid of that. And I think we all felt that we just didn't want to fall back into the way we've recorded in the past. So I mean, in the past, I think we've really more sort of genetically engineered the songs, you know, sort of forced things together to fit in weird ways. And on this record, we started the recording session with about 3 weeks of just playing together in a room, and we had our engineer record those sessions, and then we sort of sifted through them and found all the hooks and stuff that we loved, and maybe some of the lyrical ideas that we loved. And then some of the songs were born just from a piano part that Duke maybe had, or a drum rhythm that Butch had, and we just all sort of crammed our input on top of all, like, the beginnings.
I think that for us, Beautiful Garbage, I mean, it's the most confident record that we've made as a band, but it's by far the best lyrics that Shirley's written, and the melodies are stronger. The phrasing is you know, she definitely pushed herself in the phrasing, just the approaches she took to the songs, and a lot of Shirley's singing really helped us focus the album again. It's so strong, and she has such an amazing presence that we were able to veer off on all these tangents musically. You know, going way back to Phil Spector and the Beatles and Big Star and the Pretenders and the Kinks, and cutting in weird modern beats and using the computer to you know, take songs in different tangents. But really the main thing is Shirley's singing is really, it's front and center in all the songs, and it's what keeps it, you know, cruising down the highway.
Androgyny is going to be the first single, and I think it's a great introduction to the whole album, because it really is a weird pop song that's built from a variety of different influences and sounds and vibes, and it's got these sort of urban, like the verse is sort of this got jilted urban production, beats and rhythm, sort of a la Timbaland and Missy Elliott, or at least sort of inspired by that. And then there's all these 60s surfer guitar riffs that come in the chorus, and I sound sort of like Prince or David Bowie or somebody like that. And then there's this big Philly soul moment in the middle of the song, and it's really peculiar, very schizophrenic. It's got all these contrasts all the way through it, and I think we feel that the whole album is sort of like that. In the first record, you know, I didn't have very much confidence as a lyricist, and I really basically patched things together and, you know, took some fragments of ideas that they may have, like if they had a couple of lines, I would say, they're great lines, let me use them, and I'd build around them, or I'd be missing lines and they would fill them in, and vice versa. I was the sort of collator of the lyrics in the first record. On the second record, I wrote all the lyrics, but I was really aware of how they felt and how I should maybe consider them when I was writing. I wanted to please them, basically. And on this record, I didn't feel the need to please them anymore. I felt I needed to please myself. I felt that I was, you know, I was sacrificing a huge chunk of my life at home to come in and record this record. And I felt that I really needed to do something for myself in terms of being a writer, and just fulfill some of my ambitions in terms of how I wanted to write. I've had the privilege of working with 3 men who are really talented, and, you know, they've taught me a lot about writing music, and I've watched, you know, them from, you know, the back of the recording room for a long time now, and I think, yeah, it does help. It does rub off, and I think from this record compared to the first record, my work has changed considerably. Am I sounding like a real big head? I am.
No.
Oh my, she's quite good, isn't she?
She's quite full of herself, isn't she?